All right, so somebody's asking about maybe getting a not so clean Rhino site file in. So we're going to take a look at that. The first thing I would do is just really clean it up, as best you can, like without remodeling. So what does that mean? That means like in Rhino, like pulling out your selection filter, and if you don't need any curves, just come in and delete all the curves. Go through and like expand your just clean up the layers. Like here's all the GIS site data, and when you bring this into Revit, it's going to bring all the layers. So we really want to sort of get rid of all of this. I don't really need any of this GIS data anymore, so I'm just going to delete that layer. Right, so just get rid of that whole thing. Don't really need the topo lines anymore, although you could use these to make um, topo in Revit. But we can talk about that later. Um, so let's turn that off and turn that off, and I'll just delete these. Although I could just delete the layer, right? So, and then, I did find a couple of other, like this layer 1, that I don't know what is on it. Oh, let's go to make pavement. Excuse me. Make this guy current. So anyway, you get the point, right? Just come in here and start, make sure everything's on, and just delete layers, right, that you don't need. So I did that, and then I did a save as, so I'm just going to open the one that I did that to, and this is it. And then the last thing I would do is like maybe a zoom extents, right, and just make sure like there's some kind of crud out here, right, and then right, so that looks good. So I'm just going to save it, and then I'm going to export. So just pick everything. Oh, I did forget one thing. When I was looking at this guy, let me select all, turn them off, and then turn this guy back on. When I was looking at this guy, just going to pick these and go to surface tools and show the direction. I had to flip a lot of these surfaces to make them point up, right? So for example, if I pick this surface, I can flip the which way it's facing, right? So you want to make sure that the surfaces are flipped up and out, or you won't be able to see them. They'll be invisible in Revit, even though Rhino shows them with two sides. Okay, so sorry, I almost forgot about that. Let's turn these guys off, and let's turn everybody else on. Okay, so now file and export selected, picking everything you want. Right, and then I'll just do this as test site. I'm doing 2007 solids. If you do it by default AutoCAD stuff, and you look at it, it's only going to export surfaces as curves, and you really don't want that. So I'm taking the 2007 solids, and it's going to do surfaces as solids and meshes as meshes. So you want to make sure that you've got these guys set up the way that you want them. And then I'm just going to click OK, and it's going to export that guy. Depending on the cleanliness, it's going to give you an error like this, and you can say click OK, and then you can hit F2, and it'll go in and show you objects were skipped in export. So one B-rep was skipped, and I'm just not going to worry about that. It looks like everything else, did everything fine, So I'm going to close that, and we'll go to Revit. And then I'm going to import this guy into Revit. So I'm going to come in and go to Component, Model in Place, and I'm going to pick Site. And this is going to fake Revit into thinking that everything that's coming in is a site. Just give it a name of Site 1. And then I'm going to go to the insert, and I'm either going to link or import. It's up to you, whichever one you want. I'll do the import for this one. And I'm going to go get my DWG file, and we'll get the test site and click open. It's going to bring it in origin to origin, which when you import that way, it pins it. So you have to unpin it to move it. And it still can't import some of the geometry, but you're just going to have to take a look at it and see if you're happy with what you get, right? So if I go to the 3D view, and let's finish the model, and I go to shaded, I'm getting pretty much everything. There's not some huge differences in there. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my object styles. So that's under the Manage tab and Object Styles. And if you look in your Object Styles under Imported Objects, you're going to get that file. And so if you wanted to change the material of something, like if I come into this material here, I'm going to use render appearance, and maybe we'll make these a little lighter, right? I'll make them a light blue. Click OK. Go back to graphics. Maybe change the name of it to masses, since that's what they were in the right, and click OK, and click OK, and you'll see those updates. So you have access to the materials in there if you want to go in and update those. Obviously, if you want a bunch of stuff to be on the same material, you can go back to Rhino, put them all on the same layer, and then attack it that way. Okay, so that's about it. Let's do a couple of, let me just test this guy. So if I go to my site plan, and I come in and do a section, through this, right? It's going to section the lines, right? But you're not going to get any thickness because there was no solids in there. But you're going to see, that it's going to section through that piece, right? So those surfaces. If you want to get solids, you're going to have to use closed poly surfaces. If you want to move this, right? It needs to be unpinned often, but if I go to move, right, you can sort of move it, into place. So if your building is right there, you kind of want to orient it there. You can also come in to your south elevation, and if you need to move the guy up and down, you're going to have to, if you go to move, you're going to have to disjoint it, and then it will allow it to move up and down. So if you need to move it from, a place right there to level 1 so you can start modeling in Revit, just get going. Alright, so that's it. I'll send you the Rhino file that I have, and you can use it.